In this video, I will demonstrate how to use the view and text components using the Little Lemon Restaurant app. The core components of React Native are view and text. In the root level component, you have view as the parent component. And within this view, you can have one or many children. The Little Lemon header component is a child of this view component. And I've passed some styling properties to the view. I've given it a flex property of 1 and a green background color as displayed on the emulator. Flex 1 means that the entire mobile screen is taken up by this view. This is because it's the parent view of the root component. When I change the background color to pink, you'll note that the background of the entire screen changes to pink. But let's change it back to green. Now, within the view is the Little Lemon header component I created in another video. This is the header component, and if I go into that, you'll note that it's also wrapped within a view. If I display some text, it has its own view as well. Let's try styling this view to highlight the different aspects of view styling. I'm going to give it a flex parameter of 0.5. What this means is that the view will take up 50% of the parent view's space. It's not really visible on the emulator, so let's change the background color of this component. You'll notice that the pink color of the Little Lemon header component takes up 50% of the parent view's space, which is half the screen. If I change it to 0.3, then it'll take up to about 30% of the screen. And if I change it to 0.2, then the view of the header takes up 20% of the space on the screen. Now let's change this back to 1. You'll notice how it overrides and takes up all the space on the screen. In other words, it takes up the same amount of space as the previous view, which is the parent. And the pink color overrides the green color. Let's go back to 0.2. That seems like a reasonable amount of space for the header component. Now, let's change the color from pink to something that's more apt for the Little Lemon Restaurant. I'm going to give it a hex code value for this yellow color that kind of looks like a lemon. All right, now you understand that views can be nested. In other words, you can have child views, and you can use the flex property to determine what percentage of the view the child view will take up compared to the parent view. Let's examine the text component next. Text is also a core component of React Native, and all text strings must be wrapped within the text component. Note the red warning screen that comes up when I remove the text component and add a text string within the view component. The warning specifies that text strings must be rendered within a text component. In other words, it's a requirement in React Native. Any text that you see on screen must be wrapped within the text component. So let's add that back. Now, there's a padding of 40 pixels, and I can add several styles to the text component. I'm going to make the font size larger and set the color to black. The text is now much bigger because I increased the font size. An interesting thing about the text component is that it accepts nesting. This means that you can have a text component within another text component, and you can nest the styles. In other words, if you nest text components, then the child text component can inherit the properties of the parent text component, and you can override some styles. Let's do that now. I close the parent text component tag because I'm going to create another text tag. In here, I'm going to add some more text. Since the text in the parent text component reads "Welcome to," for the child text component, I type "Little Lemon." When viewed in an emulator, notice that it appears like all the words are part of one text component. This is because the text component with "Little Lemon" inherits all the properties from the parent text component. However, I can override specific styles. For example, I can apply bold font to the child text component. Then, when I return to the emulator, notice that the words "Little Lemon" are now in bold, while the rest of the words are in normal font. You can override style properties like font weight, color, padding, and so on, but still inherit the parent text component styles. Another useful property is the number of lines property. It tells React Native how many lines are allowed within a text component. Let's say I specify that the number of lines allowed is 1. This means that anything that doesn't fit in one line will get cut off. So on the emulator, the text is cut off in the middle of the word lemon because that's how many letters can fit on one line. This property is useful when you have a large amount of text and forms, especially because you can use this feature automatically. Now, when I change the number of lines to 3, you'll note that all the text is displayed because it's less than 3 lines long. In this video, you learned how to use the View component to set up the basic visual layout of your mobile app and how to use the Text component to add and style the text to be displayed on screen.